I have always loved when journalists start their articles detailing the location where they met a notable person for an interview. I like to picture the white tablecloth on the outdoor patio of the fine dining establishment or the bright, modern living room if the interview was done in the luminary's home. So imagine my disappointment when I wanted to start this piece describing my interview setting and all I had to work with was, I sat in my New York City apartment closet, next to the dirty laundry, staring at the computer screen, waiting for the Zoom meeting to start. Such was life during production of this issue, as we all grappled with the hopefully momentary realities of the pandemic. However, these 5 powerhouse women proved the old adage true, it's not about where you are, but who you're with. Through hours of conversation, the women you'll read about on the following pages opened up about all aspects of success. Here, they each share a moment in time on their respective journeys, a story you may not have heard before but one that, as you seek your own version of success, will shed light and truth on what success means and what it takes to get there. Number 1, Sunny Hostin. Emmy Award-winning co-host of ABC's The View, renowned journalist and author of I Am These Truths, a memoir of identity, justice, and living between worlds. Growing up in the Bronx, there were days when we didn't have heat and hot water, and I remember those struggles. Did I ever think that I would be a federal prosecutor or writing a memoir or be a national talk show host? No, I didn't. But I did know early on that I wanted to be a storyteller and somehow use my experience to help others, and I didn't let not knowing exactly how to do that stop me. I always had the side gig. I had dreams that I always fed. While I was practicing law, I took a writing course. It turns out, the book I started writing during that course, is the book that comes out next summer, and the person I took the writing course with, is my book agent. It all comes around, which is why I think it's really important to feed the side hustle. Do what you have to do to make ends meet, but also to diversify, dream and feed the hustle, because you never know where it might take you. For example, I was at a meeting at the local National Bar Association, where people were talking about career development. It was a really rainy day. I got my aunt to watch my 2 babies. People were talking about juggling work and life. I actually stood up and sort of gave this unexpected speech about the myth of work-life balance. Afterwards, somebody came up to me and said, "You should be on TV." I laughed and told her I thought of myself as a journalist, but I don't think I'll be plucked from obscurity. She said, "Well, I think you have been plucked. Here's my card." She happened to be a producer for Court TV. I was on television probably a week later. It felt like home. I felt comfortable, like when I'm in a courtroom. A year later I had a contract with CNN. Some believe in luck. I believe in the result of preparation meeting opportunity. Be prepared. Seek the opportunity and then seize it. Number 2, Samantha Ponder. Host of ESPN's Sunday NFL Countdown. It was probably in 3rd grade when I first processed that becoming a sports broadcaster was my dream. I'd always loved sports but was self-aware enough to realize that I probably wasn't going to make a living off playing sports. However, I used to watch a show called NBA Inside Stuff. Every Saturday morning, before big NBA games, I would watch how the broadcaster, Ahmad Rashad, interacted with the players. He genuinely wanted to know the players' stories, and even as a child, I knew that's what I wanted to do. What do you do to make a dream come true? You say yes to all of it. The entire first decade of my career, I said yes to everything. Every appearance, opportunity, every chance at exposure. I was on a show called College Game Day, then I did college basketball in the NBA playoffs. I was on the road all the time. Never home. I married my husband who was playing in the NFL and only had Tuesdays off, so we saw each other once a week the first 2 years of our marriage. Then I had my daughter and decided, I'll just bring her with me. My daughter was on 100 flights before she turned 1. When I had my second child, tried to bring them both. Looking back, it was a disaster. I started talking to experienced women in the industry, the ones who had kids like me, and every one of them said, I have so many regrets. Not one of them said, I wish I would have said yes more. So I started saying no to the things that didn't matter and yes only to the things that did. I'll never forget the day, not too long ago, when my Hugh band and I had a scheduling conflict and I had to take my then 5-year-old daughter with me to Connecticut for NFL Countdown at the last second. I sat my daughter, Scout, on the side of the set with headphones and video and told her, no matter what, don't come on the set. It was live TV. At one point Randy Moss, who is an NFL Hall of Famer, one of the biggest personalities you'll ever meet and is on the show, walked off the set during a commercial break. I didn't think anything of it. It was only afterward, when my daughter kept talking about Mr. Randy hanging out with her to talk about Paw Patrol, that I realized where he went. That might not be a big deal to people, but it mattered so much to me. It showed that my work family cared about my real family, which is my ultimate desire, to be seen as a whole person and not just a broadcaster. That is the real dream. Number 3, Gretchen Rubin. Best-selling author, podcaster, speaker and creator of the 4 Tendencies framework, exploring happiness and good habits. One thing that has been true about me my whole life is that I can become very preoccupied with certain subjects. So preoccupied in fact, that I'll throw everything else down and start doing a huge amount of research. It happens to me all the time. One time in particular, was during my law career. I was clerking for Justice Sandra Day O'Connor in Washington, D.C., a dream job, by the way. I went outside for a walk on my lunch hour. I remember I looked up at the Capitol dome against the bright blue sky and I asked myself a rhetorical question. What am I interested in that everyone else in the world is interested in? I thought, well, power, money, fame, and sex. And it happened, bam. My mind exploded. I immediately started researching these subjects. I was staying late at work to research and researching on the weekends. Hours of research on this topic. I remember thinking, this is the kind of thing you do if you're writing a book. But I wasn't writing a book about power, money, fame and sex. I was in law. Meanwhile, I began noticing my colleagues who were top law students. And they loved law. They talked about law at lunch and at happy hour and were reading law journals on the weekend. And then I went over to a friend's house who had a really boring-looking textbook on her table, and when I asked if that's the kind of thing she had to read for her grad program, she said yes, but she'd read it on her own anyway. That's the day I realized I wanted a job that I loved as much as the law students loved law. Where what I was doing in my free time is what I would be doing for work. What was I doing in my free time? I was writing a book. I thought, I could be a person who writes a book. I got to the point where I would rather fail as a writer than succeed as a lawyer, so I wrote a book. My first book was called Power, Money, Fame, Sex, those same topics I thought of on my lunch break that day the sky was so blue. Number 4, Jen Sincero. Best-selling author of You're a Badass, whose new book is Badass Habits. Cultivate the awareness, boundaries, and daily upgrades you need to make them stick. I started getting into the whole self-development thing because I was train wreck. Which is often how most people do it. I was in my 40s, I was living in a converted garage, I honestly don't even know how I was getting by and I just got really, really, sick of it. One of the ways I pulled myself out of the poverty hole was coaching people on writing their books. Writing was something I was good at. I used to be a copywriter. I'd write one-liners, ads, and I'm really good at titles. I love doing chapter titles and book titles. Titles are my thing. Except when it came to You're a Badass. I could not come up with a good title. It was the one book I'd worked on where the title came last. So there I was, trying to come up with a title, banging a million things around, and You're a Badass kept coming up. But the thing is, the word badass was a word I personally never used. Honestly, it felt a little bit inauthentic, but at the same time, it felt right. So I went with it. I did not reinvent the wheel with that book. 99% of the stuff I wrote about has already been said and it got rejected by every publisher. Everyone said it wouldn't sell. We got rejection letter upon rejection letter. Of course, when it finally did get published, it took off. I think the world was really ready for a new voice and a fresh perspective in the self-help world, and You Are a Badass just spoke to people in a way other books didn't. In the end, I realized the title wasn't for me. It was for all the people who needed to pick up a book with a title different from all the rest. Number 5, Megan Tamd. Founder of Everve, a nationwide fashion and styling company for women. 3 months after my daughter was born, I went shopping. I was in a new mom funk and really wanted to feel good about myself again, to feel more like a woman and less like mom. So I went to the mall and ended up having a really bad experience in a clothing store that left me crying in a dressing room, looking at myself wondering if I mattered anymore. I remember leaving the mall that day and, on the drive home, thinking there had to be a way to create a better experience for women like me. A place where we could walk in and feel comfortable, welcomed, valued and understood. About that same time and for a similar reason, I got a part-time job at Crate and Barrel. For 2 years I worked there, helping customers and finding purpose beyond my home and children. While my friends thought it was silly I worked there, every day I looked forward to walking through the big, glass front doors of that building. I had no idea what those doors would someday mean to me. Between that first experience in the dressing room and the drives to and from Crate and Barrel, the concept for Everve was born. A brand that reimagined the retail experience for women like me. A brand that now has 95 stores nationwide. A brand that we're so grateful continues to thrive despite all the challenges and doomsday retail projections. Then, 10 years into creating Everve, my co-founder husband and I decided it was time to sell part of the company. As fate would have it and just by coincidence, one of the investors was the co-founder and co-CEO of Crate and Barrel, Gordon Siegel. One day after a meeting with Gordon he decided he wanted to visit one of the Crate and Barrel stores on our way back to the airport. I'll never forget that moment, walking through the big glass doors of Crate and Barrel, a decade after it became my place to start living again, side by side with the CEO and my new investor. It was an out-of-body experience that was worth all of the effort and struggle to get there. A beautiful affirmation, a lifetime in the making. Thanks for watching. If you like the video and our hard work in making of this video, please like the video and subscribe the channel for daily motivational and inspirational videos.